Insurance Committee of
Yes, sir.
July 27th order of 405.
All right, we have two meeting minutes to approve. One is for July 28th, 2022. Can I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion.
I just want to go, Nick needs to sit out that one, and then you need to sit out the March one, because, you guys weren't
Right,
there.
I had that to make a motion.
There you go.
Okay,
I make a motion to accept the meeting from July 28th, 2022.
thank you, Jerry. Have a second?
I don't care.
Sure I wasn't here.
There was a night after.
Second.
That sounded like a second,
I
right?
know, I think that's a second. Okay, all right, the March 23rd, 2023, and I do make a motion to amend because it has me down for, I wasn't here, but it has me to second the minutes.
Oh, I'll make that.
Thank you. Good, thank you. Motion to approve?
So moved.
I will do that.
Do I have a second? Second, yeah. All right.
Alright, seems just that.
That's business taken care of. Okay, Mallory, the floor is yours for an update.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So to start off on the workers' comp loss analysis, bringing you up to speed with where things have progressed since we met last in March. I wanted to start off by giving you an update on the most recent experience mod, because that will kind of give you a frame of reference for how you're performing. And so what an experience mod is it's a measure of how you're performing your loss experience as compared to how you're expected to perform based on the payroll in each class code. So every class of employee, public works, fire, police, clerical, each has its own class code with its own rate based on the job. And so again, the experience mod is comparing the payroll in those class codes to your loss experience. So an experience mod of 1 means you're performing as expected. Something less than 1 means you're doing better than expected. Something greater than 1 means you're performing worse than expected.
Just to interject, it was probably record time for me. Although we are not part of NCCI, which is the governing board for insurance across the state, we do use their same calculations to calculate the experience mod. So if you were to go to a Travelers or a commercial carrier, they would report to NCCI and NCCI would promulgate your mod, but it would be all of the same calculations and factors. So I'm sure Mallory had that someplace, but I thought it was a good time to
Yes,
jump in.
thank you. And something to note is that it's not KERMA specific, it's an industry standard to calculate an experience mod. And so it uses data from 3 policy periods, the 1920, 2021, and 21-22, and is calculated once a year using 1231 data. So your experience mod for using those 3 years is a 0.98. So you're kind of right where you're expected to be. And if we look at that top graph, you can see that the 1920 year and the 2021 year were both great years in terms of loss experience. The 21-22 year is a high year, so they're kind of balancing you out to be right at that 0.98. So I wanted to again give you kind of that frame of reference to start off with. This data is valued as of 6/30, and just a reminder, our policy period begins on 7/1 and goes through 6/30. So the 22-23 policy period all the way to the right is representative of a full 12 months. So in this graph, we're looking at 6 years worth of losses. When we last met, the data was valued as of June 28th, February 28th, and since then there hasn't been much change at all except for in the last 2 policy periods. The 21-22 year actually is down 52,000 from when we last met, and that's due to a reserve reduction on one particular claim. And the 22-23 year is about $137,000 higher. That's due entirely to claims that have come in since we last met. So when we look at this, you know, what you kind of see is you have a mix. You have the 17-18 year and the 21-22 year that kind of jump off the page as high years, but then you have your 19-20 year and your 20-21 year, which were great years in terms of loss experience. The most recent 22-23, again, that just wrapped up a month ago, so that's very recent data. So far, so good. But I say that to remind you that, again, it is very recent and there is a lot in open claims currently. So of that 175,000 total incurred, which is both paid plus reserves, 128,000 of that is still in reserves. In the 21-22 year, same thing. The 748 represents both what has been paid plus what is currently in reserves, and 375,000 of that is still in reserves. So that's why, you know, we meet on a quarterly basis to kind of give you an update on where things stand, because obviously there's still a lot of room for these claims to progress, and we'll keep you updated as to how those progress.
Having said that, although there will be some development, which would be an increase in lost dollars, one of KERMA's main practices for our workers' comp adjusters is to set the reserves at where we think they're actually gonna land, instead of setting them lower and then slowly increasing them. So again, we do expect some development, but we're not expecting it to be anything substantial.
If we look at the bottom graph here, this is showing you obviously the same total incurred totals, but breaking it out by department. From an overall perspective, while there is an exception in terms of a department, from an overall perspective, there's really more a handful of kind of higher claims.
Bless you.
Bless you.
Bless you. God bless you.
Pops here and there, you know, spread across departments. There's really not one department that's driving on an overall 6-year basis. So I say that to kind of draw your attention particularly to those high years, to say that, you know, 17, 18, you see the majority of that bar is blue, Park and Rec. Park and Rec actually, you know, this year aside, that's essentially their 2 claims in the last 6 years.
Wow. Was this one claim?
It's 2.
It's two, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
2.
so those 2 claims alone made up 605,000 of that total. So yeah, to that point, you know, if we look at when we get to the next graph, it shows Park and Rec being the leader, but it's really those 2 kind of anomalies, pops, that are driving that and skewing the data.
And that's usually one of the departments that we see have higher frequency of claims. So for them to not be driving your claim count is pretty impressive.
It
So
is.
kudos to them, yeah.
Yes.
I have to tell Craig congratulations.
Yeah.
I see a lot of red though.
So in police we'll get to that in terms of frequency and severity. That is where we're seeing, you know, a couple of pops in terms of high dollars, but that is where the department that has your more mid-sized dollars. I will say though, so in the 2021 year, that's kind of one year that has a lot of red making up the year. 147,000 of that is the police, 147 of that 175, and that's 2 claims that's really driving that year. So again, kind of a picture of there are pops here and there that are really making up your 6-year totals.
Not necessarily pointing to any trends or
Right,
issues.
exactly.
So.
Instead of, you know, claim after claim coming in for the same root cause, it's less of that and more of just kind of here and there on the job.
Injuries happen
that
and-
will happen,
right.
yeah.
From, just a quick question, the 21-22 year, there's 375K still open.
Correct.
Are those a couple of larger claims or numerous?
Yeah, so that year,
So I
those.
see it's kind of even amongst.
Right. So that year, to your point, really police, fire, education, and partially ambulance make up those,
Yep.
you know, chunks. there are about 5 claims that are contributing to this one year in particular. So there's 2 fire department claims, 109K and 74K, 2 police department claims, 143K and 50K, and 1 education claim at 211K that are essentially making up that entire year.
So instead of one group having, and you'll see this, you know, in 2017, 2018, one group making up 1 or 2 large claims, you just happen to have a few different areas have a couple of larger claims in the same year.
Right. If we flip to page 2, this is, you know, kind of to that point of severity claims versus frequency claims. Again, on the whole, most departments are being driven by just a couple higher claims, with the exception of the police department, which is a mix of a couple of high claims as well as some mid-sized ones. So again, I point that out with the intent to say that Park and Rec is driving this pie graph at this point, but if I were to do 2018-19 claims forward, they drop to the end of this graph. So, you know, again, it's those 2 claims that are making up 98% of their entire portion of this pie graph.
So next time we look at a 5-year period, it's gonna look completely different
Exactly.
than it does right now.
Right. And then again, followed by the police department, there are, like I said, a couple of higher claims. So there's a $143,000 claim, a $97,000 claim, and an $82,000 claim. But the remainder of those are kind of your mid-sized claims. In terms of the fire department, the top 4 claims for that department, which are between 74,000 and 231,000, are making up 90% of their severity, which again, over the last 6 years is not many claims at all. And then for education, for the Board of Ed, again, there's 1 claim that is open currently at 210,000. So, you know, a little less than half of that total, and all others are 55,000 and lower. The bottom graph on this page is just the same information but taking out education, so you can zone in on the town specifically. And on page 3, the top graph is specifically zoning into the Board of Education and getting a little bit more in detail about the occupations there. So the blue shows school custodians, 81%. 1 claim is 55% of that at 210K. 4 claims are open between 25,000 and 55,000, and then the remaining claims are 10,000 or lower. And then the teachers, administrators, and clerical is the red portion of this pie graph, and this is completely different. This is entirely made up of frequency claims, so smaller claims. They're all under $7,000, with 45 of the 48 claims in the last 6 years actually under 5,000. So again, you know, class of employee, what they're really doing, and it's positive that they haven't seen a pop of any sort of extreme. And then the bottom graph here switches from a dollar perspective to a claim count perspective. On an overall basis, some figures for you: 238 education claims in total among these 6 years, and 183 total town claims. The police department is driving the number 1 driver from a claim count perspective at 71 claims. And so that's, you know, kind of mimicking frequency and severity from a count and a dollar perspective for the police. And Public Works and Fire are about head and head with 34 claims each over the last 6 years. And so again, I mentioned that to say, you know, Parks was number 1 for severity in terms of dollars, and they're way kind of at the bottom here with very few claims even being submitted.
What was the number for town total for the 6?
183. and we always say this, but we always encourage you to report a claim. The 22-23 year, you'll notice, is actually the highest number of claims submitted, but if we go back to that initial graph, it's one of the lower in terms of dollars. So there's not necessarily correlation between dollar and count.
You're just doing exactly what we're asking of
Yes.
you.
Yes, everyone's learning.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions before we transition to lab? Okay. So for the liability auto property, there's actually very little change since we met in March. Again, with that being 228 data. Really the other than changes less than $2,000. The 22-23 year increased by about $33,000. But again, this is the year that just ended. There was a reserve increase for one claim that caused that. On that side of things, on the lab side of things, there's overall $216,000 in reserves at this point. And the 19-20 year, you know, we discuss this each time. That's the year that kind of stands out to you, but it's that one claim that was an anomaly. It's gonna happen from time to time. And without that one claim, the total incurred in that year is $132,000. So really bringing you in line with your better performing years and in line really with all other years. In terms of losses by line of business, automobile is 34% of your claims. So this is both auto liability and auto physical damage, comprehensive and collision claims. This makes up 37 claims that make up this $512 approximately $1,000. But the top three claims in terms of dollars are making up 55% of that. $280,000 is three claims alone. With the auto liability, this is the bulk of your claims. 80% of the claims are under $10,000. So this is where we're seeing your frequency lie, especially on the auto physical damage side of things. And that's to be expected. You know, think about how many employees you have on the road every day and the opportunity for accidents.
Plus our vehicles aren't worth anything anymore because they're so old.
Mobile and contractors, they're kind of think of them as the park and rec of lab. There were really only two claims, including that one big one that's putting them in second place here. The $475,000 claim, and then there was one other at just under $6,000. So, what was that?
What was that?
It was a windstorm
The
damaged fire trailer. So we always point that out to remind you of, you know, kind of what an anomaly that was.
Yeah, that's really, and I don't think I've ever seen in my 6 years at Kerma another member with a mobile and contractors making up that much of a portion. But again, it's Mother Nature and it's one of the property coverages, so, you know,
Right,
that's
not-
what the insurance is there for, but
Right.
that one was a doozy.
That was a doozy.
Can't prevent them.
And then the green portion of this is property. You've had 8 property claims in the last 6 years, and there is one open with $141,000 in reserves currently. So a decent portion of this $261K is open at this time. And the purple is public officials liability. 78% of this is one claim. And aside from that, there are 3 other claims that are $14,000 and under. So again, that kind of is the same deal with just a couple of severe claims on the whole that's really driving a large portion of your overall.
Which is the property that's still open? I should know this, right?
Let me get back to you on
Okay.
that.
I was gonna ask
Is
the
it-
same question.
Yeah, I
It's
can't remember
a
leaving
leak.
it. Which one?
A leak at a school.
Oh,
Oh,
they
the
haven't
water.
closed that?
The flood.
Okay.
Yep. let me check in
Okay.
into that for you. Okay. And then on page 5, continuing with the lab again, this is showing the same data as the first lab graph, but to kind of, again, speak to some of those, lines of business that are driving. So again, as we just spoke about, there's that one public official's claim, that's the 1718, why you see all the purple there. There's the one mobile and contractors claim, which is why there's such a large portion of red in 1920. 2021, that blue is auto, and that is made up of 5 claims in total. However, 2 of those claims are accounting for 89% of that. And then the green is that one property claim. So yeah, let me check into the status of that and get you an update on that school claim. And then on the bottom again, switching gears to claim count, your highest number of claims is coming from public officials liability. It's about 34% of claims, but again, it's only accounting for 10% of dollars. So I say that to mention that of the 44 claims that have come in, only 4 have had dollars paid, which is why there's such a difference between percent of number versus dollars. It's closely followed by auto liability, again, kind of to be expected, and again, auto is neck and neck in driving the frequency and the severity, the dollars, and the number of claims. There are a lot of smaller auto physical damage claims under 10,000 that are obviously for that reason not contributing so much on the dollar side, but driving up the count. And so the third in line here, the green, is general liability. It's while there have been 21 GL claims over the last 6 years, only 5 had dollars paid. When you look at it on the whole though, with the exception of 2021 where there were fewer claims, you're really kind of in between that 20 to 26 count of claims for the LAP, and so it's fairly consistent year to year.
And you said 44 public officials liability matters, is that?
Yes, 44 claims over the last 6 years, but only 4 have had dollars paid.
And of those 44, can you parse out the number for town versus BOE?
Sure. Well, so public officials liability is strictly town.
It's strictly town?
Yeah,
Okay.
whereas school leaders liability, which is in orange on here,
yeah.
That's the
is
public
the-
officials version of coverage
Got it.
for the school.
Got it.
Yep.
But again, only 4 paid.
Yeah.
Do they, no,
So that includes, I
go ahead,
looked
give the
into
generalities, yeah.
the majority of those were tax appeals that had no dollars paid.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I get that, thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
You're right, yeah.
Yeah.
Any questions on LAP or workers' comp?
Thank you, as always, very, very thorough. Thank you. All right, Dana,
Okay,
the floor is yours.
thank you.
Thank you.
So, what I like to do, as you know, is illustrate in these presentations the connection between the wonderful reports that we get from our partners here at COMA and what's happening internally, so that you know what's happening behind the numbers that are presented to you. And so, I don't mean to offend anyone because I know that we all know what risk management is, but I want us to be using the same phraseology, so if you'll bear with me for just 1 second. When we look at the numbers that Mallory presents to us, what we're really talking about, of course, is risk. And what we do on the risk management side of the house and what we've been doing is identifying the risk and putting procedures and processes in place to address risk, right? That's, for instance, what your safety committee has been doing for years relative to health and safety issues for town employees. Ultimately, what our partners at KERMA do for us is this is an excerpt of a presentation that our KERMA representative did for us back in January. Ultimately, and this is not all inclusive by any stretch of the imagination, when we talk about risk, here are all the different things that could possibly go wrong in a municipality. This is the parade of horribles that people like myself, you know, we don't sleep at night.
I was
and
gonna say, we lose sleep.
we
over
lose sleep.
it.
This is Murphy's Law. We live Murphy's Law every day. If it can go wrong, this is where it's going to go wrong. And so the job relative to risk management is to look at all these different types of risk. And what has been happening at the town for the past several years is department by department, we've been asking all of our department heads to make sure that they are doing a good job relative to identifying risk and making sure that we have processes and procedures in place to either mitigate or eliminate altogether different risks. And if you remember some of the past conversations that I've had with you, the town focuses a lot on training managers, training employees about the risk, training them how to mitigate, how to eliminate risk. Well, we've been through a bit of an evolution, and we're about to take the next step, and I'd like to illustrate that next step to you on the next page of the PowerPoint. Just to give you another reminder about our timeline, 2015 is when the town made a decision to more explicitly address, again, we're only looking at a couple of different types of risks that are mentioned here: employment practices, public officials, liability matters. That's why my eyebrow went up when you said 44. No. So in 2015 is when the town decided to operationalize addressing risk relative to those particular items, and then in 2016 we operationalized addressing risk relative to OSHA compliance and health and safety issues. The safety committee changed the way that it approached things, and Kathy, I think you've been with us since.
Yes.
You've been along this path with us the
Yes, I
entire
have.
time.
Yes, I have.
And 2016 is when we also started publishing our now famous website-based OSHA compliance plans. And then 2018 is when we won our award for the way that we are handling all of those risk mitigation and risk elimination activities and all of our efforts. So, not satisfied with status quo, we are moving on to the next step in the evolution of risk management. We are now going further to operationalize our risk management function. So beginning this year, January of 2023, KERMA came to visit us with Mallory, you were there, Ashley, Ian Havens visited us also. And again, an excerpt on the other side of the page. We started training our managers on how to take a more strategic approach to risk management. We started teaching them, this is just baby steps right now, how to start risk mapping and how to engage in job hazard assessments. You may recall that when I was with you last time, I focused specifically on job hazard assessments. We have already had 3 departments that have completed those job hazard assessments: police, fire, and public works. And now we will be expanding job hazard assessments to other positions in the town. We are also going to talk to our managers about risk mapping. This first bullet point, again, has already been introduced to the managers, And now they're going to be asked to drill down and look more specifically at all the work that their departments do, all of the things that their employees do in terms of tasks, and start asking the Murphy's Law question. If it can't go wrong, what's gonna happen? How is it gonna go wrong? How much is it going to cost us? And how do we go about either eliminating the risk altogether or mitigating against the risk? It's a mammoth task, but clearly your staff, your employees, they're up to it. I mean, they've already been putting numbers like this out in front of you that Mallory's been presenting without even having sort of the strategic education behind risk management under their belts. Now we're giving them more tools so they can think even more proactively and more strategically about what risk management means for them department by department. So I wanted to also do a little bit of a shout out to Craig. Craig Bowman is our head of Parks and Recreation here at the town. And I would argue that one of the reasons that his department is doing so well, he's, by the way, happens to be one of the co-chairs of our safety committee. He is one of the managers that does a really good job of risk mapping anyway. And he is a fiend about training for his employees. So I think that his work, we're seeing the fruits of his labor when we look at those numbers that he's putting out there for you.
Dana, is there a timeline from start to finish, or do you look at this ongoing?
We look at it ongoing, and we also do the work in accordance with the resources that are available. So, you know, if we can identify, we prioritize risk. So the risks that tend to cost us the most money, the more severe, those bars that you see, the more severe types of risk, we're going to address those first.
Makes sense.
And then over time, you'll see us tackling the lower hanging fruit. So it also has to do with the number of staff we have and how many personnel we can throw in a particular task and what have you.
Has it been received in a positive manner?
Very well. In
Good.
January, this table was full. Everybody who was invited, I mean, usually when you say risk management, except for people like me, everybody's eyes kind of roll to the back of their head. They're like, oh, here she comes again. And people go the other way. I'm not offended. I can see It's like, oh no, there she comes again. But I have to say, granted, we did feed them, but they showed up for the meeting, and it was a full house, and we had people sitting along the wall.
That's
the
awesome.
managers showed up. They were into it. They paid
There was
attention.
great engagement, yeah,
Wow.
yep.
Yeah, they were
It's really
really
good to
into
hear.
it. And, you know, we showed them, I mean, when we show them reports like this is their report card. So we also motivate them by saying, this is what the town council is seeing, this is what the public sees, this is the amount of money we're not paying out because you're operationalizing the risk management. So they also come, because I think they see the connection too. So
There's an
that's-
ownership.
That's nice.
Yeah.
That's it.
There's an ownership.
That's it.
I think that's awesome.
So that's our next step, and hopefully by the time I come to the next meeting, we'll have some updates for you.
Okay, I look forward to hearing more about it.
I just want to say, you know, from a partnership standpoint, thank you again to what you do, what all of the employees do, and your support. It really all makes such a difference, and like you said, it's very apparent, so please keep up the great work.
That's why we have an
Yeah.
awesome town.
Yes,
Absolutely.
I agree.
Absolutely.
Keep that free training coming.
You got it.
Yes,
Yeah.
The word free.
The more you
Word
use
free.
it, yeah, you're one of our best
Make
students.
my boss happy.
Good.
Because when I call him to say, I need X number of people from XYZ department to go to training, and I get the.
My eyes rolled.
Yes.
And that motor has to come in and get me out of the coma.
It's okay. It's okay.
It's free. It's free. I might have to feed everybody, but it's free.
Food is always an enticement.
It really is
Really
a great motivator.
Very much so.
It helps.
Very much so. All right, do we have anything else? Any other topics? No. Jerry, thank you for serving
Jerry,
the
thank
committee.
you.
It's
Wish
been
you the
nice.
best of luck.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
your travels.
We miss
They were gonna be back and forth, 20-hour drive 3 times, so,
Woo-hoo.
yeah,
Good.
what are you gonna do?
Oh my goodness.
Safe safe travels, best wishes to all of you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
We really enjoyed Rocky Hill, and I mean, we've lived here since January of '86.
Wow.
So we've seen the town grow, and we've been active in a lot of different things. So it's with mixed feelings that we're leaving, happy and also sad, you know, to leave our friends and the community. As you said, Rocky Hill is an awesome place to be, and totally feel that way. It's not that we're leaving because we don't like Rocky Hill, it's we're leaving because of ties to the family, and I guess the motivating factor was the sellers market that was here. It's just,
Oh, yes.
it just popped at us, and we said, if we're gonna do this, we gotta
Yeah.
do this, and so it was a hectic 2 months, and it's still in the process of being craziness. Don't move.
Don't move. Find your forever home and stay, right?
Yeah, but I mean, we do like Rocky Hill. Rocky Hill's awesome, and you know, it really is. It's an awesome community. We went to Salutes last night. We found a $50 gift card, and as we're cleaning up stuff, we're finding all these treasures. We found a $75 gift card from Mac's Place. So,
Oh, my. Well.
yeah, we'll go there. So we went there, and we ran into all these people, and then I know Sean over there, and he's, oh, you're moving, and so he popped us for dessert and coffee, and you know, so it's really
Yeah.
nice to know the community that we have here. That is, it's really awesome. You know.
Hopefully your next chapter will be just as awesome.
Yeah. Well, and our son already volunteered to come out and build us a shed, so.
There you go. It's working
Is
already.
that where you'll be living?
Might be. I want to run electricity out there. Oh, I have to go through the town for permits. But, you know, so they're 5 hours away, and they're gonna come out. Tell us how big you want it, I'll bring my tools, and bam.
That's nice.
So, okay.
Great.
Don't have that here. They're too far away.